Thanks for joining our webinar for today for Enterprise Agile Planning. Today we'll be looking at our Spring 2025 overview and roadmap, as well as talking about the SAFe Plugin migration and giving you some details around that migration. So as we get into our talk today, we're going to cover a lot of ground. So excited to have you here. We have lots to share. Lots of details, and if you've joined specifically around the SAFe migration, plugin migration, we'll be doing a demo later as well. So I've got a few other people with me here, but before we dive into introductions, let me just cover, as we always do, up front, our safe harbor notice, which is to say that we're making forward-looking statements potentially in this webinar. And if you read all the fine print, it says, don't make a buying decision on any of the conversations that we are presenting here today, as things may change. But we certainly want to share with you what's over the horizon and share our enthusiasm as we continue to build Enterprise Agile Planning out. So here's our agenda. We'll do some quick intros. We'll look at EAP. For those of you who might not be familiar with what EAP is, we'll go into some detail around that and give you some greater context for where EAP lives in our ecosystem. We're going to talk and show you a demo, right? You can see EAP in action. We'll also do a migration and walk through what the steps are for migrating from the SAFe plugin over to EAP. And then we'll also talk about our roadmap in our last segment, look at the roadmap, as well as we have some Menti questions for you as well. So we always like to be very customer-centric in these conversations and get your feedback, get your guidance, and understand what's on your mind and what concerns you might have. So we want to know about that. So real quick introductions. I'm Fred Champlain. I am in the outbound product management team for SPM. My title is Agile Evangelist. I've got a background with delivering Agile adoptions, business transformations, and digital transformations across multiple industries. Scott, if you would, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, Scott Townsend. I'm on the inbound side of the SPM team, and I've been focusing on the agile functionality, specifically the enterprise agile planning software. Thanks.
Great. And Sai?
Hey everyone, this is Sai Shikhar. I work very closely with Scott on the inbound side as well. I focus on integrations and EAP in SPM.
Great. Thanks, guys. Let's set the stage a little bit. We're not going to go in great depth, but if you are new to EAP or you discovered the webinar just through a community, however you found your way here, delighted that you're here. So I want to level set a little bit. Maybe you're familiar with our prior generations of Agile capabilities, Agile Dev 2.0, for example, and give you a sense of the bigger picture. We won't spend too much time on that. But overall, what we're achieving, looking to achieve with strategic portfolio management, including enterprise agile planning, in all of our planning capabilities, whether it's PPM, the strategic planning workspace, even our enterprise architecture capabilities, our offerings around enterprise architecture. The bottom line of what we're trying to do is deliver the right business outcomes with confidence on the same platform, right, for all your work. So really bringing everything together. So we're getting the alignment of planning. We're aligning that with the strategy, and then we're delivering and managing our execution together on the platform. So it just amplifies, investments that have been made in the platform for a lot of our customers. It brings together, various elements, and we can look at that in terms of our end-to-end view. So this is I'll do a quick build on the slide, and it's really a conversation around how we go from our strategy to delivering customer value. So if you think somewhat left to right here, and we'll close the loop. So this is actually an iterative view. We have our strategy planning. So if we think about EAP, we think about managing a portfolio of epics that are driven from a strategy of a business. Some of those strategic objectives ultimately help us prioritize our investments in epics, for example, at a portfolio level. So we also think about enterprise architecture. That's where a lot of our constraints come from, a lot of dependencies. We want to continuously plan and find that alignment. So we look at where our demands are, our requests. And if we're thinking about products, we take inputs and ideas around products and product needs. And then we think about delivery, of course, and our platform is very flexible. We can go anywhere from, if you will, pure waterfall or event-driven planning to variations of hybrids, all the way into quote unquote pure agile delivery. And of course, using Enterprise Agile Planning as our latest capability that's highly scalable. We'll talk about that in more detail. So lots of additional items here. We think about our DevOps, we think about our development capabilities, we think about the incidents and case management. And finally, we think about our feedback and our closing the loop of our value telemetry. So we have continuous improvement by closing this loop. So maybe this loop is every month in your organization or every quarter, more typically, maybe annually for a planning cycle. So it varies by organization, but this is the greater context of why we have enterprise agile planning. So let's talk a little bit about the product itself. For enterprise agile planning, what our objectives are in when we first conceived of enterprise agile planning as being the next generation of agile planning for the platform. So the very top was scaling further than what we offered in the SAFe plugin. So really, you'll see a lot of flexibility around scaling. There's some out-of-the-box terminology, but we're really not set to a particular methodology. We want to support whatever you are doing, whether that's might be, since we are looking at the SAFe plugin here, it might be SAFe. It could be any of the configurations of SAFe. It could be inspired by SAFe. It could be DAD. It could be less. It could be more. It could be Nexus, Scaled Scrum. We have that flexibility, and that was our goal, is to provide the flexibility by portfolio to work the way that you need to work. Of course, working around from there to think about leveraging the platform, thinking about all of the different synergies that we have across the platform, what informs, for example, the hypotheses that we might make in our allocation of funding at a portfolio level, for example. We can get some early insight to usage, for example. We may have a particular question in mind, something that we want to see in terms of the performance or the outcomes of investing in a new epic or a feature. We can do that very easily on the platform. And also the flexibility to evolve. So a lot of organizations are on a journey when they're thinking about adopting Agile or just practicing Agile. Over time, things change. Generally, we want to trend to be more mature, quote unquote, but it really is about what fits the organization, and that may change over time. I mean, that's the essence of being agile, about Agile, is practices change, objectives change, needs change. So we want to be able to support that. Also, as we were designing this, inspired, from the pandemic, it seems like a long time ago now, but we were also thinking about how do people work and ways of working together. So thinking about asynchronous work versus thinking about in-person PI planning. That seems like a long time ago. Some organizations are still doing it, but a lot of organizations do it online now, of course. So we're very mindful about that, about what we can offer, and what those opportunities are to improve that flow. Of course, it's ServiceNow. We're an AI business platform. So inherent in EAP and SPM, for that matter, is a lot of enablers that are based on Gen AI, as well as machine learning. So we have a lot on the platform that we're leveraging, power of the platform, as we think about analysis and our analytics that we can provide via EAP. Lastly, we're also thinking about, well, how do we use the platform to align our teams, both for communication, for availability to documentation, for all those collaborative elements. So we're really thinking through that lens as well. How do we actually pull together, enable teams to be aligned in the work that they're doing and have that visibility? So when we think about things like the goal framework, for example, come into play where you can implement OKRs. So let's just talk a little bit about the key personas. Who do we have in mind when we're designing EAP? Who do we think of? Of course, there's a lot of them, but some of the primary ones that we're thinking about are portfolio managers, whether it's a lean portfolio manager or just a portfolio at multiple epics, might be projects that map into epics for your organization. We see it all in terms of various intertwining of hybrid, of waterfall, of quote unquote pure agile delivery. But we're really thinking about the people that have the responsibility to manage the delivery and the financials and the resourcing of a portfolio. We also think about product managers and product owners. So as a lot of our customers are in the process of adopting what I say, product-centric approach, in other words, migrating from a project or program-oriented view into a product-oriented view, we want to think about what do we need to do to support product managers. And also we think about the delivery side. So we are using SAFe terminology here of a solution train engineer and a release train engineer. That might be a lead scrum master in your organization, or a little bit older term of a chief scrum master, but a senior scrum master, all kinds of ideas around those titles when somebody's leading a team of teams as a scrum master. Or a team, you could be a flow manager if you're working more in a Kanban style. So the idea here is, of course, RTEs, STEs have a lot of needs in terms of visibility, finding exceptions, tracking activities, and being able to facilitate an art through a PI. Then lastly, we're thinking about team leads and scrum masters as well, and also team members, of course. So we think about, well, as a scrum master, what are you trying to get done day to day? Obviously, you need to work your way through iterations or sprints. So we have all the functionality to support, of course, Scrum Masters and teams as they complete their work. So next, what I'd like to do is hand it over to Scott, and we'll talk a little bit more about the landscape of where EAP fits in across the platform. There's a lot of different areas that we are leveraging. We'll go through that, and then we'll dive into some details around the platform itself, or I should say around EAP itself, show you a demo, and get into some nitty-gritty. I don't see questions at this point, Scott. So if you do have a question, just pop it in the chat. We're just a small team here, so it worked fine just to put it into chat if you would like. And then we'll also make sure that we have some Q&A time at the end as well. So Scott, over to you.
No, thanks, Fred. And I just wanted to kind of quickly touch on this. This is drilling into a little bit about EAP and the integration across the platform, which is where we really think, a substantial part of the value comes in. And so we're, in full disclosure, we're not 100% there yet on some of these areas, but we're looking at, how EAP connects both within kind of the SPM product suite, such as the capacity planning, financial planning, resource management, as well as some of the other areas, such as the unified backlog. One area that we're looking at right now is around hybrid work, which we're not going to get into today. We'll focus on EAP, but that's where you're combining kind of traditional project planning and agile development. So that's something of interest to us, and sort of in the future, feel free to reach out to us if that's something high on your list of priorities. We're also looking at taking advantage of some of those AI capabilities to provide proactive guidance within EAP, as well as looking at the value stream and a few other areas, that are kind of of special interest, such as the ITSM case support. And of course, the big thing with EAP and all of the work that you're managing within SPM is, how does that align with the overall strategies of your business and those higher level OKRs? But just wanted to touch on that. And we can go to the next slide, Fred. And this is drilling down a little bit, but basically kind of orienting you to where EAP fits into the SPM kind of suite of products. We've embedded it into the strategic planning workspace, which also has the product feedback, get the existing portfolio planning area, and then EAP. Within EAP, as Fred mentioned, we wanted to keep it very flexible. So you do have the option to have multiple configurations, depending on kind of your individual group's needs within your organization. And then EAP can be used individually, or it can connect to more kind of granular team tools, such as ADO and Jira, which I will get into shortly, as well as our collaborative work management product, which has been released, but we're adding Agile functionality to it now. Plus, it can connect, or EAP can connect to our existing Agile Dev 2.0 functionality. So if you have teams that want to continue to live on Agile Dev 2.0, you can use that in conjunction with EAP, or just EAP all by itself. But with that, let's go to the next slide, please. So usually with that prior slide, the next question I get is, well, what's the overlap and where's the focus? So here we have the planning level over on the y-axis and the work granularity on the x. And so you can see, the team focus. That's really where CWM and Agile Dev come into place. We have a lot of shared functionality in terms of the planning at the team level with the backlog, the Kanban sprints, and the individual teams. But EAP is really focused on those cross-team kind of prioritization and planning decisions at the art level, as well as the solution train, if you're using solution trains, as well as kind of that overall portfolio. But this is just kind of let you know where things fit together. But with that, let's go to the next slide, and I'll pass it over to Sai.
Thank you, Scott. So one of the big things with SPW and EAP is that you can really choose the tools of execution of your choice and seamlessly switch between ServiceNow and SPM and any external tool like Jira or ADO. So you can start over in SPW. As a portfolio manager, you can create your portfolio plan and plan items like projects, demands, and other planning items, and prioritize them and align them with your goals, and also use modules within SPM like scenario planning and really finalize the plan at a high level. And once you have a prioritized list of projects demands, you can then go into enterprise agile planning and break down the work into more granular level like epics, features, capabilities, and stories, and really prioritize at the granular level as well. And one of the big things about enterprise agile planning is that you can, plan across teams and, plan your dependencies, resource assignments, plan the resource allocation at a team level, and really get a plan ready before your first sprint or PI starts. And once you're ready to execute, you can seamlessly switch into Jira or ADO and really start the execution. And as you keep executing, we sync back the work items back into Enterprise Agile Planning and roll up the progress of the work to epic and project and demand level within SPW. So as a portfolio manager, you can just come back to your SPW and look at your projects, demands, all the items at a high level within your portfolio plan. And, if there is any risk of some work item not, executing as planned, you can make any decision or take any action. So, Fred, can you go to the next slide? Yeah. So these are the three core use cases of integrations and the value add of integration. The first core use case is that you can really have the visibility within ServiceNow at a project or epic or sprint or team level. And you don't need to go into n number of Jira instances or ADO instances to really understand the status of the work, right? And the second core use case is a lot of organizations, especially organizations that follow scaled agile or cross team, planning processes. They want to do big room planning within ServiceNow. And these teams may be working across different in Jira instances or different ADO instances, but you can have a single unified view within Enterprise Agile Planning and plan the dependencies across these teams in a single place in EAP. And finally, one of the things that we are focusing is on AI, and we are adding capabilities like team level summaries, demand level summaries, project level summaries, so that you can really get that high level insights across teams and be able to take any action necessary as soon as possible. Uh, Fred, can you go to the next slide, please?
Sure.
Yeah, I'll hand it over to Scott.
All right. Sorry, I was just answering your question real fast, but today, one of the things we do want to highlight is the migration path for kind of existing SAFe plugin users to EAP. And we announced it last August, but kind of that's a big warning sign there is that we are deprecating the SAFe plugin in August. And so not to scare anyone, but we don't have the ability to take it away. But basically, we limit support and we've already limited enhancements as we focus on EAP. So that's coming. We do have a nice migration tool that's available that I'll kind of walk us through later in the demo. All right, next slide, please. One thing that we posted recently is an EAP quick start guide that's on the SPM community site, and it has a lot of good information about why use EAP, some persona information, but it also has additional information about the safety EAP migrations, including several videos which can literally walk you through kind of the migration process. So hopefully that will be pretty helpful, but I want to make sure everybody's aware of that. So. Let's see. And all right, so let me take control. And feel free to keep asking questions. But
Hey, Scott, before you go, I think someone has their hand up.
oh yeah. Do you have a question?
Yeah, Marcia, we see your hand up.
Oh, I don't, we may have to click allow to talk.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, and then Terrence, we see you as well. So I'll put go ahead, Marcia, if you'd like. Terrence, did you want to go ahead?
Sure. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, we can now. Yep.
Awesome. So I'm looking to implement this in my organization.
Hmm.
One of the things that I'm looking to do is if I was to describe the levels of my organization, I have a set of program or portfolio managers that report into me. And then I have the dev managers for my three different dev teams report into me. And what I would love to do is to have the program managers be able to look at things from what I call internal stakeholder perspective, meaning like, here's all the requests or demand that came from sales. Here's all the request or demand that came from marketing. Here's all the request or demand that came from operations, as an example. And then be able to prioritize that and then push the epic or the feature into the appropriate dev team based on that prioritization. Does that seem like what we would be able to do with this feature and functionality here?
Yeah, you can definitely do that. We do have a gap right now where we don't have a connection between demands and kind of the EAP epics. We are in parallel working on sort of a customization, and we may be able to provide instructions on that that'll help everyone out until we get that into the product, which we expect to be early next year. But a lot of people are starting with demands and branching out to whatever that turns into, project, epic, and so on. But
Right. No worries. We'll do it manually, but at least the concept seems whole, like you guys are thinking about it. So thank you.
No. And maybe I'll jump into the demo and we could catch the questions at the end, just to make sure we have time.
Yeah, and Marcia, if you still have a question, we'll catch him at the end just to manage our time here.
Right. No, thanks. I don't want to short side at the very end on the survey. But to jump into EAP, hopefully people have seen it, but just to orient you, I'm within the strategic planning workspace. Over on the left, I have the product feedback area, the portfolio planning area, EAP, a new dashboard area, which is being released. I'm on some pre-GA software, as well as kind of a list view and a settings view. Before I start kind of the EAP proper area, I'm going to jump into the admin side. And we've got a couple things going on here, but only your admin will be able to see this. But we do have the ability to kind of define different configurations. This final map is going to go away pretty soon, but you can see out of the box, we have 4 levels for your teams, kind of how do your teams roll up within the organization. We did name them based on the SAFe conventions, but think of these as just flexible groupings, so they don't have to be SAFe, and you can relabel those. Similar on the work item side, we have 4 levels: story, feature, capability, and epic. And you can pick and choose which of those to use. Out of the box, we did ship with the 4 SAFe configurations, and we recently added a Kanban configuration. And so basically, you can use one of the existing configurations to kind of, start off what you're doing within your organization. You also have the ability to create a configuration. And again, you're basically choosing kind of which work structures you'd like to use, as well as which team structures to use. And here's where you can also set your planning calendars. You can have a different default planning calendar within each configuration. And then you also have the ability to override the planning calendar at the kind of group of teams level or the Agile release train. We wanted to keep kind of the teams that are planning together on the same calendar, but if that's too restricted, feel free to provide that feedback. While I'm here, this is also where we can set up the sync between Agile Dev and EAP to sync the iterations. And so if you're doing that sync, the iterations would be defined within EAP and sent over to Agile Dev. One thing that I want to call out that we're looking into is that currently you need to have an admin license to set the calendars or define the calendars. So we're looking at kind of changing that a little bit. Kind of the reason we did that is that we're using some platform calendars, platform business calendars, and that gives us a little bit more flexibility around what we can do on the reporting side. But we're looking at the trade-offs there and may change that based on some feedback we've been getting. One thing while we're here, that if you're thinking about implementing, I would try to, if possible, it's a little bit easier if you start with one of the pre-built configurations. And the only reason it's a little bit easier is you don't have to go in and set up your dashboards, which isn't very difficult, but it'll just save you a step or two. Once you define your iterations, then you can define how all of your teams roll up. And so here I've already defined kind of for the full configuration how my 2 teams roll up to this art, to this solution train in this example, and to this kind of EAP portfolio. This kind of agile structure will be used for the navigation within EAP. And so just keep that in mind as you're setting this up. And then last but not least, you can set up the calendars. And this is where you can set up your individual sprint calendars as well as how those roll up to the planning.
Yeah, I responded late. So yeah, I'm open to making it happen. But most of the stuff I have, I'm on a call now.
Oh, could you go on mute if you're speaking? Thank you.
All right. And so you do have the ability to, define your sprints however you'd like, as well as your planning interval calendars, and you can have multiple. So a lot of flexibility there. But coming over to EAP, as I mentioned, over on the left, you have basically the agile structure. And the way you look at and view work is by selecting one of the levels within the agile structure. And basically what's happening is that level is serving as the context and basically the granularity of what you're viewing. So I've come in, I've looked at DB Team 1. Now I'm looking at information about that team, what sprint they're on the home tab, as well as what stories kind of are in play at the moment. All of the levels have a similar set of tabs, but again, kind of the context and granularity changes as you go up and down. On the backlog tab, this is where the individual teams can come in and define their their sprints and their backlog. And while I'm here, while this is loading, I do want to highlight that kind of getting a little bit technical. We are sharing the RM story table with the Agile Dev 2.0 functionality, but we are using a different calendar for the sprints. And so we do keep those in sync if you've set that up in your configuration, but just keep that in mind. We've gotten that question from a few people. And so let's see what's happening with my backlog. Here we go. So I've gotten that question from a few people. But while I'm here, I'll show you that in the backlog, you do have the ability to kind of move stories up to individual sprints. You can also make bulk updates, which not everybody is aware of, but that's pretty easy to do just by changing the Enterprise Agile iteration. You can also change the teams. We also have some kind of nice controls down here, so you can focus in on what's most important to you. And you can also kind of force rank things within your backlog or within the individual sprints as needed. Coming over to the planning board, this is basically your Kanban board. And here you can see I've got mine set up for the team based on the states, as well as who the information is assigned to. This is all configurable, so you can change that to whatever makes sense for you and your organization. And you can also choose what information is on the individual cards. Let's see, cancel out there. And I don't know if everybody has seen this, but we do have a docs component, and the docs component allows you to save documents associated with your teams, as well as any level within the Agile structure. And we also have docs associated with different planning items, your epics, capabilities, and features within EAP. From my perspective, a lot of the power of EAP is bringing together those teams for that cross-team planning. And that's where the planning board comes into play at the art level. And here you can see I've got my team as a kind of a horizontal row, and I've got my iterations as the verticals, and I'm also showing the team backlog. And then here I can see kind of all of the stories. If they have dependencies can span across teams, and they would be displayed here. And the dependencies can also span across different arcs. So if you have dependencies spanning different arcs, then the count will go up, but you won't have an individual kind of connector going between the two. One of the questions and one of the areas I think we need to kind of improve, make a little bit easier, is the ability to delete those dependencies. But basically, if you go to the dependency tab, click on that dependency, then you can delete it pretty easily. So just takes a couple extra clicks, but we are working to make that a little bit more streamlined. And so coming back to the home tab, and now I'm at the art level, and you can see kind of based on the configuration that we're now looking at features at the art level. We've also pulled in some information about the story points, which you can measure kind of the PI progress, look at how the work is distributed for that art, and then get some basic information about your individual teams, but now you're at the art level. Similar at the team level. And here you can also see additional information such as kind of the sprint goals, stories by state. These are configurable dashboards. What you're looking at here with these two are things that I have added. They are not out of the box. In addition, I've tapped into kind of the process mining functionality. That functionality is a separate add-on. I'm not trying to sell it to you. I just want to make sure you're aware that is something that you can use and can embed on your individual dashboards. I do get the question too, but in order to modify these dashboards, we are using kind of the standard platform analytics, and we ship out of the box a number of kind of dashboards pre-configured. And if you want to come in and take a look, you can. They are read-only out of the box, but to configure them yourself, you just need to make a copy, and then you can edit those dashboards, which, hopefully, keeps it nice and easy for you guys. And so here's the one that I edited as an example. with kind of the process mining information right there. And so let me come back to EAP. And then just kind of coming down, you can see we also have the sprint burn down, sprint burn up, as well as kind of the velocity. I only have a couple of sprints that have taken place so far. So my velocity is only showing 1, but otherwise you would show up to 5 right here. Now coming back, so I'm just going to go up a level. So now I'm at kind of the group of Agile release trains. And you can see, again, I've got granularity is changing, the work item distribution. That's where we're connecting the work up to kind of our OKRs, which are located in your portfolio plans. But you do have a few options there. So if you want to see how the work is distributed, whether it's operational or strategic, which goals or which owner department they're in, that's all something you can do right here. And similarly, at the highest level. One thing I do want to highlight is that what you can view, whether on the backlog or the planning board, this list of work items is configurable. I always like to show people this just because there are 2 places to configure EAP. So we have an EAP configurations option. And so you can jump into there and go to kind of your individual configuration. We were working on the full config. And then here is where you can see kind of the work item types allowed. And then if you look at the levels of your Agile structure, team, Agile release train, solution trainer portfolio, here is where you can go in and modify what's available both at your backlog and on the planning board. So keep that in mind. This also has the ability or a location where you can change those dashboards. So this is where you can swap in like what we ship with what you may copy and modify. And you can add your own. So just want to highlight that it's pretty easy and you can do all that right there. And I see some kind of questions coming in, but I'll just kind of keep flying through. I know we don't have a ton of time, but I do want to switch over to the SAFe migration. And so we do have a guided setup. And I know when you first look at this, it looks like there are a lot of steps. But I like to highlight that, we have a lot of great information here, and it's actually super easy to migrate. And so this is just giving you an overview of what you need to do, but you basically can walk through each of these steps very easily, very little bit of knowledge kind of required, once you have kind of this in mind. But a couple of key things with the migration. If you're coming from SAFe, you have 2 options, kind of the portfolio SAFe versus essential. You do want to kind of line up your EAP configuration with what you had in the prior version, just so every entity maps correctly. Also, if you're using kind of the prior SAFe plugin kind of out of the box and EAP out of the box, basically everything or most everything is set up for you. So that's just something to keep in mind. So you can first confirm your configuration. So I'm going to go from portfolio to portfolio as an example. Then I can look at my mapping. And this is just the mapping between the tables. Everything is pre-set up for you. And so this is just the table and what it's mapped to. And if you click into it, you can see which column is going to which column from SAFe to EAP. If you have custom columns, you can add those here and do the mapping yourself. And then there is one nuance. So if you do need to modify what's being migrated on the story side, there is a script include, and we put the name of it right here. So that's just something to keep in mind. That's, again, not super technical, but just a little bit different on the story side, just because of the way the data is stored. And once you set up kind of all the mappings, make sure everything's right, then you just need to do a couple of things. One, it looks a little bit funny, but we just need to kind of modify kind of a calendar setting to be in all application scopes. So basically, you're only changing this attribute. Again, that's in the SAFe videos that we'll walk you through. And then you can migrate the data. And we're just telling you right here what's going to be migrated. And please kind of read all of this. There is a note here that says, you do need to migrate kind of in order of the PIs. So depending on how much data you want to migrate, you have to start with that first PI. So you can't start with like PI 10 and then go back and migrate starting with PI 3. If you need to go from 3 forward, always start with the earliest that you need to migrate. And you can also migrate kind of individual kind of groups as well. So you don't have to migrate all of your data at once. So you can have a pilot group kind of come in, start using EAP, see how it works, and then pull in the rest of your teams. And then a couple of things you probably have expected. So you've got teams over on the SAFe side. You do need to make a minor modification to those teams. I will show you this one. So this is just a demo team. But basically, these are your existing SAFe teams, and you need to set the type to be an Agile team, which makes it available within EAP. This type isn't always displayed, so you might have to add that to your form. I'm looking at the time. I think I'm getting a little bit short. Sorry, Sai. And let's see, coming down, come down. And then kind of last but not least, after you've got your teams kind of mapped, then you can set up your users and just go in. We do have some new EAP user roles, so you'll need to assign those to your groups and individual users as needed. And so ignore that email back there. And with that, let me go back to EAP, and I do want to spend another minute just talking about the connection between EAP and portfolio plans. But basically, EAP is showing you work associated to a team, while portfolio plans are showing you work that you've selected. And so as an example, I have set up a portfolio plan that looks at a department. And so I have set my department on all of my epics to be IT. And then I've pulled in all of the epics, which allows me to look at those epics on the roadmap, organized in the same way as EAP, digital banking, digital insurance, and digital lending, which aligns to digital banking, digital insurance, digital lending, and so on. Minor note, and you probably have already done this, but there is a portfolio plan configuration option. And so you do need to kind of tweak that to add team for groupings and color, but that's the only thing that helps you make that connection. I do like to highlight that connection because how we pull in the work is slightly different, but it's just like a simple extra step once you know to take it. But again, if you have questions, always feel free to reach out to us, and hopefully the demo helped. But with that, let me pass it back to Fred, you, and Sai.
Very good. Sai, do you want to take the lead here, and we'll get
Yes. Thank you, Fred. So let me
yeah.
just share my screen. And Fred, do you mind sharing the Menti survey link?
Oh, sure. Yeah, let's do that. There we go. So if you go to this QR code, this is our Menti. We do have some questions for you. So I'll give you a minute to get over there or to take that link and pop it into your browser.
Yep, and I just put the link in the chat. So
Oh, fantastic.
Yep. Thank you very much, Fred. So I'll quickly share the survey as well on my screen.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. So I hope everyone can see the survey. Oh, we already have some responses as well. That's great. So the first question is like, what kind of products do we currently use for agile planning and execution? And I realize that some of you may be already using Agile 2.0 or SAFe. and also integrating them with Jira or Radio. So you can select two options as well. Like if you're integrating Agile with Jira, you can select Agile and Jira. And if you have selected others, it would be really helpful if you could put in the chat which specific tool you're using so that we can get a better idea.
And I just put it in the chat again. Sorry about that. I hadn't sent it to everyone. So.
Okay, I think we're still seeing some responses, so we'll just give it a few more seconds, maybe 30 seconds, and we can move on. Okay, moving on to the next question. Thank you very much for this feedback. So, like, which industry does your company belong to? So we are trying to understand, what kind of industry you're in, like financial services or automobiles. So it doesn't have to be perfect. Anything you feel best describes your company. Awesome. Okay, I see a lot of healthcare and hospitality, government. Yep. Okay. This is very interesting. Moving on to the next question. Oh, I still see some responses, so we'll give it a few seconds. Okay, I'll move on to the next question. Yeah, and what type of teams does your organization have? So we have IT development teams, IT operations, product development that do core software development, and then we have marketing, HR, any of the backend functions. And if your teams don't fit into one of these, you can click on others. So here you can basically allocate points to each of this category. So you may have a mix of different teams. So if you have, say, 50% in IT development and 50 in IT operations, you can just give it 50-50. Okay, that's some very interesting feedback. A lot of IT development and operations teams. So I'll just move on to the next question in maybe 15 seconds. Okay, moving on. So how many teams does your organization have? Like, 50 teams or, 100 or 500? You can just type in the chat. Mm. Yeah, interesting answers. Like it's all over from 5 teams to 500 teams as well. Yeah, and it's okay if you don't know. You can just skip the question as well. Okay, moving on. So, which methodology do your teams use, right? Like, is it Scrum or Scrum of Scrums? So, what we are trying to understand is like, do you have only one level of sprint or multiple levels of iterations, or do you use like a SAFe methodology? Okay, and if you use a methodology that doesn't fit into one of these three, you can, feel free to just ping it on chat so that we can get a better idea.
We understand there's lots of variation, so
Yeah.
be happy to learn more about what you're doing as well. It helps us just to anticipate. I think we had a few questions around Kanban. That is in our sites as well into 2026. You'll see some additional flow metrics come along. So we're very aware of Kanban, for example, as another method that people are using.
Yep. Okay, I'll move on to the next question. Um, so yeah, most important question. What are your plans to currently, what are your plans to migrate to EAP? Right. Mhm. And the next question is about any barriers or any challenges that you're facing. So you can give us more information on what challenges you're facing.
And apology for the timing, we're just getting tight, but we really, really want to hear if you're in that undecided or not planning to move, we'd love to know, more about what can we provide, right? Where are we short? Perhaps it'd be really helpful. And for those of you who are planning to, fantastic. Our intent is to provide you lots of support along the way. and you'll get our contact information as well. So we see this as a journey for everybody, very prepared to help you one-on-one.
Yeah, and if you'd like to maybe have a chat with us to, help you make a decision, or if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us, and we'll set up some time to understand more. Right. Okay, moving on. So, uh, can you maybe mention any barriers to, move to EAP, like any challenges you're facing? uh, Essentially the reason why you are undecided, or why you decided not to move into EAP. Okay, a lot of great responses. In the interest of time, I'll move on, but please feel free to put more reasons on the chat as well.
Yeah. I did see one where someone was having problems out of the box, but feel free to reach out to us. Uh, feel free to reach out to me, william.townsend@servicenow.com, and we'll figure out what's happening. Should work pretty easily. So.
Mhm. Yeah, so we just have 2 minutes, so I'll move on, but feel free to, give more reasons on chat, or even email us after this meeting. So, so could you, rank the different capabilities that we have planned for the next few releases, so that we can really prioritize what you want us to do? Again, this is, you can split 100 points across each of these options in the order of your priority. Um, and if you give more points, that means that's a high priority. Okay. Verify 20. Yeah, I'll just give it a few more seconds, maybe 15 seconds more, since we are still getting more responses.
Mhm. While we're waiting for that, I just want a quick reply. There was a question that I inadvertently mentioned we would answer live about CSDM 5.0 and the overlap and impact, I think, from an SPM perspective. Really, from an EAP perspective, there's not much change. We'll certainly benefit in the future from some of the product definition and product management side that CSDM 5.0 brings into play. But by and large, we're abstracted from some of those changes. But overall, as we mature out our product side and product modeling, as well as some of the value stream work, that will come into play as we look at 2026 and even out into 2027 from an EAP and SPM perspective.
Yep. Thank you very much, Fred. So this is a final question. I know we are almost out of time, but for our integrations roadmap, we are investing heavily on integrations. I see a lot of people prioritize that in the previous question. And for the first version of the solution, we plan to integrate epics and features in both directions with Jira directly. And for the second version, we are planning to extend this integration to stories and sprints, right? So we are trying to understand if the first version solves all of your use cases and if you're ready to use it with the first version, or is the second version, really important in order to even implement, right?
Noticed we're about a minute over time, so.
Yeah, I think we need to wrap up. So let's get this one finalized. Great question, Sai.
Mhm. Yeah,
So while
Fred.
we're waiting, okay, Sai, go ahead. Yep.
Yeah, no, I was just saying I think we can wrap it up.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, with that, we're out of time. So thank you everyone for joining. I think lots of interest in EAP and the migration of SAFe plugin. Reach out to us. We've dropped in our emails here. Feel free we can have a conversation about your specific situation. An advantage of EAP being so flexible also is that there's a lot of variations, and we're more than happy to be available to chat with you. So again, thank you for your time. Thanks for attending, and have a great day. Bye, everyone.